The Amazon is not a place, it is a living, breathing entity. A labyrinth of emerald and shadow that holds more secrets in a single square mile than most continents hold in their entirety. For centuries, we have viewed it as a frontier to be conquered, a resource to be harvested. But for the people who call it home, it is something else entirely. A library of ancient knowledge, where the stories are not written in books, but whispered on the wind and encoded in the very DNA of the plants. Deep within this world, shielded by the unforgiving green canopy, live the Ka'au people. They are not lost in the traditional sense, they know exactly where they are. Rather, they are a tribe forgotten by the relentless march of the outside world, a people existing in a delicate balance between ancestral tradition and the encroaching hum of the 21st century. Here, a hand-woven hammock might hang next to a battered radio, and ancient tribal markings might adorn the arm of a young man wearing a faded football jersey. It is at this fragile intersection of past and future that a curious, powerful resurgence is taking place. While the world outside is consumed by digital connection, the youth of the Ka'au are turning inward, seeking a different kind of network. They are deliberately embracing a ritual as old as the river itself, a ceremony that is both feared and revered, the drinking of the yaja, the tears of the forest. Kale is 18. He has seen the world outside through the cracked screen of a shared smartphone, images of concrete cities and a life of seemingly endless convenience. Yet, he speaks of a profound emptiness, a spiritual hunger that the flickering screen cannot satisfy. He describes it as a quiet sickness, a feeling of being untethered from his own history. He feels the stories of his grandfather, a great shaman, fading from memory like morning mist burning off the river. He fears that if he doesn't act, the voices of his ancestors, the spirits that have guided his people for millennia, will fall silent forever. Tonight, under a sliver of moon, he will join the other young initiates in the communal longhouse. The air is thick with the scent of burning copal incense and the low, rhythmic chanting of the elder shaman. In the center of the hut, a clay pot holds the yaja, a dark, viscous potion brewed for days from a sacred vine and the leaves of a specific shrub. It is notoriously, profoundly bitter, a physical manifestation of the difficult journey ahead. This is not a recreational act, it is a sacred pilgrimage of the mind. They drink not to escape reality, but to find a deeper one. Kale's hands tremble slightly as he accepts his cup. He seeks a connection he feels slipping away with every passing satellite. The journey begins with a single, bitter sip, a key to unlock the spirit world. The question is, what will he find waiting for him in the darkness? The bitterness hits first. It is not merely a taste, but an invasion. A taste of raw earth, of crushed roots, of time itself. It coats Kale's tongue and throat, a potent, non-negotiable presence. His body rebels immediately. A wave of nausea, violent and cleansing, overtakes him and the other youths. This is expected. It is necessary. The shaman calls it the shedding of the outer skin. To see the spirits, one must first be emptied of the mundane world, its food, its worries, its physical weight. Only in that purified emptiness can a true connection be made. As the physical turmoil subsides, a profound shift begins. The shaman's chant, once a simple sound, transforms. It becomes a physical vibration that Kale feels in his bones, a rope anchoring him to the hut as his consciousness begins to drift. The flickering fire in the center of the longhouse is no longer just a source of light. Its flames stretch and dance, painting impossible colors on the thatched roof. The familiar faces of his friends and cousins around him begin to blur, their features melting into the shadows as if they were made of river clay. Closing his eyes, he does not find darkness. He finds a universe of swirling, incandescent patterns. Kaleidoscopic geometries pulse in time with his own heartbeat, forming intricate lattices of light. The elders say this is the architecture of the spirit world, the sacred framework upon which reality is woven. For what feels like an eternity, he floats in this sea of living light, a disembodied observer. Then, the patterns begin to coalesce. They flow together like tributaries joining a great river, forming the unmistakable shape of a colossal serpent, luminous, ancient, and impossibly vast. Its scales shimmer with all the colors of the jungle, and its eyes are twin pools of starlight. This is the great anaconda, the spirit guide, the keeper of the Karao's knowledge. The serpent does not speak in words, but in pure understanding. It takes Kale on a journey not through space, but through time. He flies over a forest that has not yet known the bite of a steel axe. He witnesses hunts, ancient ceremonies, and the birth of his own great-grandparents. He sees the arrival of the first outsiders, their pale faces filled with a mixture of fear and greed. He feels the collective sorrow as new diseases swept through his people, a silent plague that stole more lives than any spear. But he also feels their resilience, the unyielding strength that allowed them to endure. He is no longer Kale, the boy of 18, he is a part of a continuous stream of existence, an unbroken chain stretching back to the first dawn. He feels the presence of his grandfather, not as a distinct person, but as a warmth in this river of ancestry. He focuses his intent, calling out to him in the silent language of the spirit. The grand, historical tapestry begins to fade, replaced by a more intimate scene. The stream near his village, the sunlight filtering through the canopy exactly as he remembers it from childhood. On the bank, a figure sits, patiently carving a piece of wood. It is his grandfather, younger than Kale ever knew him, but with the same kind eyes. But as Kale moves closer, a shadow falls over the idyllic scene. A discordant sound, like static, begins to tear at the edges of the vision. The spirit world is not merely a sanctuary of peaceful memories. It is also a mirror, reflecting the wounds of the living. And Kale is about to discover that the quiet sickness he feels in his waking life has a name, and a face, here in the world of the spirits. The shadow has no face, yet it is undeniably human. It is a flickering silhouette composed of 1,000 disjointed images, flashes of advertisements, faces from foreign films, the logos of corporations Kale has never heard of. It is a man made of static and noise, the digital ghost from the smartphone screen. It doesn't speak, but it emits a low, incessant hum, the sound of a city that drowns out the whisper of the wind. This is the Hollow Man, the spirit of the world that is forgetting. As this figure steps into the vision, the world around Kale's grandfather begins to decay. The vibrant greens of the jungle leaves turn a sickly, monochrome gray. The sound of the running stream is consumed by the digital hiss. The Hollow Man doesn't attack, it simply absorbs. It leaches the color, the life, the meaning from the memory. Kale feels a primal terror. This is the quiet sickness made manifest. It is not an enemy to be fought with a spear, but a void that consumes everything it touches. He tries to scream at it, to stand between it and his grandfather, but he has no substance, no voice in this realm. He can only watch in horror as his connection to his past is erased before his very eyes. It is then that his grandfather turns, not to the static phantom, but to Kale. His image is wavering, losing its clarity, but his eyes are steady and filled with a deep, ancient calm. He raises a hand, not to fight the Hollow Man, but to offer a lesson. You cannot unmake a river, his voice communicates, not in sound, but in pure thought that blossoms directly in Kale's mind. You can only learn its currents. The noise is a new river, my grandson. It is powerful, and it is here. You do not survive by building a dam. You survive by building a stronger canoe. The vision shifts. The Hollow Man is still there, a constant, humming presence at the edge of his sight, but his grandfather now shows him something else. He shows him a single, tiny seed in the palm of his hand. As Kale watches, it sprouts, grows, and becomes a towering tree whose roots anchor the earth and whose branches touch the stars. He shows him a woman weaving a basket, her fingers moving in a blur, each knot a word, each pattern a story. He shows him the faces of his people around a fire, their eyes alive as they listen to a storyteller. Our strength was never in being alone, the thought from his grandfather continues. It was in the telling, in the weaving, in the growing. The Yaja does not show you this to make you afraid. It shows you where the roots have grown weak. Your generation knows the words to the songs, but you have forgotten why they are sung. With this final thought, the spirit of his grandfather reaches out and places the memory of the towering tree, the feeling of the weaver's knot, the sound of the ancient story, directly into Kale's heart. It is not an answer, but a starting point. A seed of his own. As this transference happens, the vividness of the spirit world begins to recede. The hum of the hollow man fades, not because it is defeated, but because Kale now has a stronger song in his own soul to focus on. The kaleidoscopic lights dim. The presence of the great anaconda dissolves back into the darkness. He can feel the rough thatch of the longhouse floor beneath him, the coolness of the night air on his skin. He is returning. The journey into the past is over. But as he opens his eyes to the familiar sight of the dying fire, he understands the true, terrifying challenge is just beginning. How do you plant a spirit tree in a world that is cutting down the forest? Narrator's voice. Dawn in the Amazon does not arrive, it seeps in. A slow, gray light filters through the thatch of the longhouse, revealing the exhausted forms of the young initiates. The ceremony is over. They lie scattered on their sleeping mats, physically drained and psychically scoured. The air, once thick with incense and chanting, is now still and heavy with unspoken thoughts. There is no celebration, no triumphant cheers. The journey into the spirit world is a deeply personal ordeal, and its revelations are often burdens to be carried, not trophies to be displayed. Kale rises slowly, his body aching as if he'd run for miles. The vision is already beginning to feel like a dream, but the feeling it left behind, the warmth of his grandfather's lesson, the cold hum of the hollow man, is as real as the hardened earth beneath his feet. The quiet sickness, the formless anxiety that had plagued him, is gone. In its place is a new, heavier weight, the weight of purpose. An elderly woman, the shaman's wife, moves silently through the hut, giving each of the youths a warm, clear broth. It is a gesture of grounding, a gentle welcome back to the world of flesh and bone. A vision, the elders know, is meaningless until it is woven back into the fabric of daily life. Later that day, Kale walks through the village. The familiar sounds of daily activity, the chatter of children, the rhythmic thud of a woman pounding manioc, seem different now, clearer. He sees the encroachment of the outside world not with fear, but with a new, sharp clarity. The plastic buckets, the cheap radios, the faded t-shirts. They are the artifacts of the hollow man. He understands now that he cannot simply throw them into the river. He must create something more beautiful, more meaningful, to stand beside them. He goes to his family's hut and finds it tucked away in a dusty corner, his father's old ceremonial drum. The hide is slack and brittle, the wooden body covered in a fine layer of mildew. It has been silent for years, a forgotten relic from a time when the village's heartbeat was stronger. With painstaking care, Kale begins to restore it. He cleans the wood, rubs it with oil until the grain shines, and carefully begins the process of soaking and stretching a new hide to repair the playing surface. This quiet, solitary act is his first answer to his grandfather's message. It is not a grand gesture, but the simple, humble work of reclamation. As he works, another of the young men from the ceremony, Rian, approaches him. His face is clouded with a cynical disillusionment. "Why do you waste your time with that, Kale?" he asks, gesturing to the drum. "I saw it too. The world that is coming. It has machines that can level this whole forest in a day. It has a voice that can drown out every chant we know. Our ancestors are ghosts. We should be learning to speak to the living, to the ones who have the power." Rian's words hang in the humid air, articulating the doubt that lives in many of their hearts. Is this revitalization just a futile gesture against an unstoppable tide? Kale stops his work, looking not at Rian, but at the drum in his hands. The true test of his vision has arrived, not in a spiritual battle with a phantom, but in a quiet conversation with a friend. Kale looked up from the drum, his hands steady, his gaze clear. He didn't offer Rian an argument. He offered him a truth, the one the vision had gifted him. "Their world has a loud voice," Kale said, his own voice quiet but firm. "But ours has a heartbeat." He lifted the finished drum. For a moment, a profound silence seemed to fall over the village, as if the jungle itself was holding its breath. Then, Kale struck the hide. The sound that erupted was deep, resonant, and alive. It was a sound that had been absent for so long that many had forgotten its power. He struck it again, and again, finding a simple, primal rhythm. Tum-tum, tum-tum. It was the rhythm of a heart. The rhythm of the river. The rhythm of walking through the forest. Heads turned. The work of the village slowly paused. Rian stood frozen, the skepticism on his face warring with an undeniable pull. Then, one of the young girls who had been in the ceremony began to hum, a tentative, ancient melody that fit perfectly into the spaces between the beats. An elder, sitting in the doorway of his hut, smiled faintly and began tapping the rhythm on his knee. This was not a battle won, but a seed planted. The hollow man may still lurk at the edges of their world, the roar of the future may still threaten to drown them out, but in the center of the village, a heartbeat had returned. The journey to find the spirits, it turns out, was never about looking backward. It was about gathering the strength to move forward. It was about finding a song strong enough to sing in the face of the encroaching silence. For the Kaao, and for the forgotten tribes across the Amazon, the greatest act of resistance is not to fight the modern world, but to fiercely and beautifully remember their own. And in the resonant beat of a single drum, that remembrance had begun.